Hey, good evening,
Good
everyone
evening.
watching us live on YouTube. Another fun weekend, a rainy one at that, I would say. But welcome to Toast the Talk, right? Our F1 show discussing everything F1 that's happened over the weekend, that's planned out for the weekend before and the weeks to come. An exciting racing year that we have had, 2021 so far. Probably one of the closest championship races, seasons that we have seen in recent years between two different teams. Usually it's, 1-2 Mercedes and figuring out who's going to take over from there. And I know there are a lot of thoughts around that on whether Bottas has always been number two foil. Is it been a good move for him to move out or not? And a lot of questions going through people's head. But welcome to the Toast Network. You've been hearing about our cricket series. We recently started off with the F1 series with some super enthusiastic and extremely knowledgeable F1 fans who make armchair fanatics sound like a very good positive thing to have. And I'm going to go around and have a round of introductions with each one of them. First up, let's have Naren. Naren, what are your thoughts about the race today?
My thoughts about the race, it was exciting at the start, boring in the middle, exciting at the end. And watching two Red Bulls, to be neutral, watching two Red Bulls on the podium after a very long time in this year seems exciting as such. So, yeah. For a F1 fan, yes, this is the weekend to watch. So that's my thought about it.
Wonderful. Next up, we have Vignesh with us.
Yeah. So for me, Bottas winning, ensuring that he doesn't have a second winter season with Mercedes. The Red Bulls in the podium, and overall, the entire race was fun because of the strategies and everything involved.
Yep, thanks for that. And last but not the least, Kazim.
I'm sorry, what was the question? I missed the question.
Oh, we're just doing introduction of the panelists and what are their thoughts on today's race.
Okay, so yeah, to introduce myself, I'm going to go a little bit different from last time. I'm working as an analyst in Chennai, and I'm a recent DTS Netflix fan. So, you know which team I'm obviously supporting. And one of the most favorite part of the race was, Sainz overtaking a lot, because, that I feel like he's one driver who always goes, under the cover, under the radar, and he doesn't get a lot of recognition. So him actually overtaking a lot and, making moves, that was really fun to watch. So, yeah.
Brilliant. So any of you felt there were any surprises from the outcome of today's race?
Yeah, one surprise that I had was one anticipation that I had after Mick coming into Q2 is at least he will stay between the 10th to 15th position. But what was disappointing that, like how I said earlier, Mr. Saturday, Russell, who used to perform in qualifying, does not perform as such in a race. Mick Schumacher did the same thing, that he was still plumb last after what I saw at the end of the race. So that was on Saturday. I was quite excited, but on a Sunday after seeing the race, I was a little disappointed of what has happened. My personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone was, Haas was obviously super excited. The first Q2 after, actually it was their first Q2 and it was Mick's first Q2. So there were a lot of hopes riding on that. But maybe it was also maybe fluke that they sort of got through, and this is just the start of things where he couldn't really take on the pressure. And obviously this was a very tough racing circuit, all the way from Bottas at number 1 to Mick and Mazepin, who were competing for 19 and 20. Everyone had a really tough time. So maybe it's probably a little too much to expect from Mick from this particular race, is what I felt. But what about you, Vignesh?
Yeah. For me, was the team radios which was going on, like, can we go 58 laps? on a single intermediate. Leclerc getting no response, Hamilton's team telling that, yeah, you can come in. The best thing which caught me off guard was Ocon completing the entire 58 laps without pits. And that was a surprise for me today.
Oh, yes. I mean, I thought maybe Leclerc might try to push for the same thing, but at the end of it, everyone sort of came in except Ocon. And I think that's wonderful that how he was able to get there. Not sure if it made too much of a difference. Yeah, he did score on top of Giovinazzi, so that's probably a good thing. But Kazim, anything from your perspective?
One thing that I was not totally expecting was, Alonso spinning on the first lap. That was, that was something I was totally not expecting, because I was actually expecting another Hungary 2021. When Hamilton eventually reaches Alonso, we are going to see a lot more defensive maneuvers from him. And I thought, it was going to make the race more interesting. But him spinning out, I was quite surprised by that. So, yeah, that was, and him, I think he has dropped down to 16th place. So that was not the race that he was totally expecting. So, yeah, that was something that was really surprising. The other parts, I actually thought, Hamilton might end up on the podium, but, due to the difference in strategy calls, I still feel like it was a 50-50 kind of thing. There could have been rain and Hamilton's call could have been wrong. Hamilton could have stayed out and, made it onto the podium. It was a 50-50 call, so I don't really see whom to blame there. It was just bad luck for him, I would say, yeah, considering his luck, as a lot of haters call it. So, yeah.
And that brings up a very interesting point that, in today's F1 racing, there is a lot of data being crunched in the pit zones. Everyone has access to the same information, which we got to know from the previous race, right? Like everyone had the same weather forecast information. It wasn't like anyone had anything extra. Yet what was unique today was a plethora of strategies that we saw that different teams were trying to play out today, right? It felt, while yes, the middle of the race sort of got boring or procedural, as they said, towards the end, suddenly all the different strategies that people had played out were coming to light. And I think that made it a lot more exciting. What are the different strategies that you guys felt really grabbed your attention? Rain, if you want to.
Yes, I would like to take back to the same race last year. So if you see the same race last year, it was Perez who was all on the top. He was second position and Hamilton was first, followed by Vettel who came third. So if you see at the end of the race, after everybody, the first three came to the Park Fermé, there was a video that showed how much the tire has degraded for Perez and for Hamilton. Perez over his radio said that if I did the same with the same tire another lap, I would have exploded my tires. So tire management, tire strategy is something that it depends with each of the drivers. Is what I say. Somebody, like for example, if you give the same tires to a newbie, he would say spin in the first 10 laps because he don't know how to manage his tires, or his tire management is a little poor. So tire management, even though we have a lot of data that is available, how each driver manages with whatever data he has is what makes the difference between the first and the last, is my opinion.
Yeah, Vignesh, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, so the strategy wise, I felt Aston Martin fitting in Seb for that one lap medium tires backfired. And this is not the first time when Aston Martin's strategy in Turkey has backfired. Last year also, they did the same strategy call with bringing him for the slicks, backfired. They brought him in, put him on an enters, and then it worked. So I felt it was like a double whammy for Aston Martin in terms of strategy. They don't go well with probably Turkey and the rains.
Yeah, Turkey's been a cold turkey for them. No doubt about that. Yep, Kazim.
So yeah, again, for me, it would have been the strategy that was. I mean, the tire strategy was pretty interesting because some people, some teams were actually going on saying like, no, we absolutely cannot go on these tires. While I think I remember Leclerc's audio or Gasly's audio. I guess they were saying like, yes, you can go for the whole race with those tires. So it was absolutely interesting because and I even remember the commentators going on about the computing machine they had on the pit lane, saying like how I'm really surprised like how the algorithm or the machine didn't take into the account about the graining of the tires. Once they pit and they get out, I think that was also one factor that didn't help Hamilton, right? So I believe it's quite interesting, and also I think the conditions also changed when compared to last year, and there was also the track was not drying as fast as they expected. It only dried off in the end, so that was also playing, and I think I mean Sochi also played a part in the different strategies, I would say, because the rain that came at the end of the race eventually made the race really interesting, and they had to work and they were not expecting that. So that was one thing I think people were being really safe and then bringing their drivers in. So that was actually quite interesting.
That brings, this year, the most exciting races have all had weather components play a role. Would you guys agree or disagree?
Not only this year, every year I believe. 2018, if I'm not wrong, Hockenheim ring. 2019 Hockenheim ring. I think so. That's where the title shifted between Seb and Hamilton. And last year also Hamilton lost out because of the things. 2020 we had Turkey, which is one great example where the rain played in and made Hamilton win. That was the time when I felt he actually showed his outclass, that he's the best driver out there. This year probably Imola, we had Sochi, Turkey. So yeah, every year when we have rains, it plays a spoil sport and makes the race interesting.
Do you think we should artificially create these conditions?
I
I think that is.
so. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Ren. Go ahead, Naren.
I don't think so because the one race which did not have rain this year, which was exciting, was Monaco. So Monaco primarily because of the fact that Hamilton, he came in fifth and he again went into pits to change to soft just because he wanted to get the fastest lap of the race. So not just rain, I believe Herman Tilke also has to play a very important role in designing the circuits because he was the one who mostly designed all street circuits. And the higher the complexity of the circuit, the better is the competition that's there between races. That's where we see who comes first and we see the true potential of skilled drivers. Weather doesn't necessarily play an important role, but track complexity and other conditions also does play an important role in finding out who a skillful driver is and making races interesting.
Interesting, Kazim.
That is true because like I think that's what I was also thinking. I think I read an article somewhere where we can actually artificially create rain or something. I'm not sure, like I think it was used in China or something for some reason. I don't remember the exact article, but there is a possibility that we can artificially create rain, and if that is something we can go ahead and do, I'm not really sure if that is the way to go, because then I would say, if we keep on doing the same, if we create artificial rain and we keep on having it for all the races, people might eventually end up, being rain masters. I'm not really sure if that might happen, but people might pick up on skills, because if we see Bottas struggled a lot last year, and this year he showed his masterclass. There was a stark difference in both when we compare these 2 years' performance, right? So yeah, I'd say like rain does play a part, but it doesn't necessarily all play a part. There are a lot of things coming in together. So yeah.
I agree with Kazim for a while because this year the track was specially refurbished to avoid last year's incidents. Last year was such a slippery track. I believe Bottas spun around like 7-8 times. And this time he had no spins. So the track itself played that role because they had, I think, so water blasted the entire track to ensure it's not a repeat. In that way, yeah, if year on year the track changes, just the surface changes, that can also add fun to the sport.
Yep. So Kazim, to your point, there was actually done to sort of get all the clouds rained out or drained out before they had the Olympics coming in, because they didn't want bad weather to ruin it for them. So they did the whole cloud seeding experiment to sort of get all the rain out of the system from that perspective. Totally agree that if we start doing everything like a routine, it's going to get boring from that perspective. But that brings me to an interesting point in terms of tweaking the system to make the races more interesting from different perspectives. Is it more drama on the screen? Is it testing the talent of the drivers that we have against all the machines that they're running? And that's what for today's, what the F1 section that we have, our point of discussion is we've introduced sprint racing at the qualifying, right? And it's maybe helped a bit or not, we're not sure. They're going to be adding a lot more of it next season, almost a third of the races, I believe. My question is, what if they tweaked it and they made it a reverse grid for the sprints? Based on the practice races or whatever formula that you guys think makes sense, we actually have the sprint order decided where the fastest car is right at the back. Now, probably the first time ever Mazepin would be in the first row. But what are your thoughts on that? Anyone can start.
Kazim, we can start later.
So what I was actually thinking was, if we had introduced reverse grids this year, then we might have seen a lot more racing in sprint races. Because when we consider the factor that, the cars are going to change next year, if there is going to be more wheel-to-wheel racing, I would say putting in reverse grid will actually be, very demoralizing. I'm not sure if that is the right word to use, because if there is a lot more, if there are a lot more competitive cars on the grid, then qualifying makes no sense, right? You're just going to go there no matter what, even if you are pole for the sprint race and you are at the back, then every car is just going to be competitive, and then it's just going to, what do you say, it's just going to render qualifying moot, is just my point. And if you're going to have a similar setup to this year, then I would say reverse grid will make for an interesting option, because then we will actually see a lot of racing, a lot of overtaking. So yeah, that is my point for that. Because I'm really not a fan of sprint racing this time, because it's just like we have qualifying, it is going on a good note, and when sprint racing come, it's kind of like a short view into what the actual race is going to be. It's just like, okay, if there are no overtakes in sprint, then we are sure to know that, okay, in the main race it's going to be like this. So the expectations go down and the fun is reduced. That is my viewpoint on that.
It's like the T20 version. Naren, any different thoughts?
Yes. To add on to what Kazim said, and probably add a different viewpoint of what Kazim said, the primary reason sprint was brought into place is number one, increased viewership. If you see, if we just had practice on a Saturday, qualifying, practice on a Friday, qualifying on a Saturday, race on a Sunday, the stands will not be full. But in the other case, when you had practice on a Friday, sprint qualifying, practice plus qualifying on a Friday, sprint qualifying on a Saturday, a race on a Sunday, the stands would be almost full. And we'll also be excited to watch all the 3 days of the race. We don't, currently, if you see for this race, we definitely would not have had time to watch FP1, FP2, because we are obviously working. We just would have watched the highlights. Considering that it was FP1 and qualifying, no matter what had happened, we definitely have logged in to see what was happening. So that is increased viewership, and it obviously generates a lot of revenue with respect to sprint race. The second thing I'd like to add is that I would like to see sprint racing in 2021 and 2022. Obviously, 2022, there are new aero regulations that is coming up. So the entire car is changing. We might not know who will come on the top. 2021, we obviously know who the driver is coming. So if we have a reverse grid, there will be a lot of racing incidents that I foresee will happen, because Mazepin obviously will not let the other guy pass, because he has done the same with Sebastian Vettel in Spa, where he did not allow to pass. He said, "It is my view." He said he is just trying to overtake. He might say the same thing when it comes to a reverse grid. But we can see a lot of surprises too, because we see Russell in Williams doing a phenomenal job. We also might see Kimi coming on the top, because he does a very clean race. He's been doing a very clean race for over a period of time. No matter which car he's in, he delivers a clean race. It completely depends on the performance of the car. The performance is still good. It is like a fat man running against Usain Bolt. He'll come at the last, even though he goes to the Olympics. That's my viewpoint. We'll see a lot of racing incidents, but we might also see some surprises.
Yeah, I believe that, okay, we can look for the reverse grid. We should look to F3 and F2. Now, if you see their racing formats, it's something like this. In F3, the qualifying, so they have around 30 cars, I believe. So out of that, only the top 12 are reversed. All the others stay in the same time. They race in the first race, and then the top 12 of the first race is reversed, and then they do the final race for the weekend. In F2, the same thing. Qualifying, they use the top 10. The top 10 is reversed, while the others stay the same, and then they race for their first sprint race. The second sprint race is the order is determined by reversing the top 10 of the first sprint race, and the others remain the same. Now, as said by Naren, that if we do the entire reverse grid, Nikita Mazepin might create a problem. However, just catch top 10, reverse the grid. Let the other 10 remain the same. Now, what happens is that all the top 10 are great players. So I believe we'll have lesser racing incidents because they have performed so well, clean racing. Also, we can see how the drivers, the top 2 drivers, are actually competing against each other. We'll see more wheel-to-wheel racing. And overall, I believe that it would be a consistency between F3, F2, and F1. So people who are watching F1 can also watch F2 and F3. So increase audience to all the 3 format of the motorsport.
I hope FIA is watching this show. This really insightful stuff that they can leverage right from the fans. My last question for all of you before we close out this exciting weekend is, according to each one of you, what was your drive of the day or the weekend? Right? I mean, I can start off while you sort of put out your thoughts, but I would say, Checo Hamilton. That after a long time, I felt there was one solid racing maneuver that lasted for about 4 or 5 turns. at that high octane pace just showed the skill that both of them had in those tough conditions, and the way Checo defended, really, like, he deserved the top 3 finish just for that 5 seconds.
My drive of the day would be obviously Checo and Hamilton. They had some really, they had a great drive. But I would also add on Leclerc. He was doing absolutely fantastic with that Ferrari. I mean, the engine has improved, and he was also doing a great job on the wet. So it was absolutely well done from Leclerc. I would say Sainz also, but I'm not really sure. Like Leclerc was also doing a fantastic job. So I put Leclerc a little bit ahead of Sainz.
Yeah, my driver of the day will obviously be Charles. Apart from the obvious of Bottas and the two obvious coming in the top, Charles has definitely improved on his pace in this year by, let's start with how he did fad in Monaco. Even though he came first because of his engine failure, he did not start. That just proves the middle of him being a great driver. And given the fact that it was all completely with condition today, he still managed to grab the 4th place. So my obvious driver of the day would be Charles Leclerc, closely followed by Checo, my obvious favorite. And the third, I would, as per the driver standing, the third would be Pierre Gasly. I know it is coming off the blow because at the first lap he did hit Alonso, and that's what made him spin. But then after all that has happened, he has come to be number 6th. So my obvious driver of the day would be Charles, closely followed by Checo, closely followed by Gasly.
So I also have confusions between 3 drivers of the day. The first is Bottas, of course, because of his incredible drive, the way he managed his pace over the entire race. It's commendable. The fun fact is he has led more laps in this entire season than in a single race than he has done in the entire season. So for that, I'll give him a driver of the day. The second person who I want to give the driver of the day is Yuki. Now, the first 9 laps, he hold on to Lewis Hamilton. And that was actually I wanted from Alonso, but yeah, I got it from Yuki. So I'm happy with Yuki. And the third driver of the day, leaving Perez and Hamilton for sure, is Ricardo. Now the reason is he was the first person to go pits for Inters. No one had any idea, and yet that pit actually helped him propel him ahead. Agreed, he was not getting to his fullest potential. He was where he is now, but yeah, that one strategic call was the call which made me choose him.
Yep. No, I agree. I think overall, you'd probably say Alonso was celebrating the Bratri, right? He got a spin from Gasly. He decided to give Mick the honors. But with that, I think there was a good, fun conversation that all of us had, touched upon a lot of topics across the various Grand Prix that we have. A lot of action this weekend. I would say thanks, guys, Vignesh, Naren, Kazim, for taking your time. And
Vivek, I just had one question before we wrapped up. Do you guys think that the Turkish Grand Prix would be the point where the championship would be decided? Because now there is a good solid lead by Verstappen over Hamilton, and considering if the if all the races go very close racing in the near future for the next 6 races, I would say it's going to be like, I feel like this is a place where Hamilton would lose the championship, is what I feel. What are your thoughts on that?
I would go with stats. And in the last 7 races, neither of the driver has gained an advantage of more than 7 points. So, considering the last 7 races, and we have 6 races to go, the pendulum can spin anywhere. Especially considering you have Abu Dhabi, which is one of Mercedes' favorites, Kota, another Mercedes favorite. Brazil is Red Bull favorite. Then you have Jeddah. No one knows what it is going to give. Qatar, no one knows what it is going to give. So two unknowns, two with Mercedes, one with Red Bull. The pendulum can swing anywhere. So I don't think the championship is lost.
My take on that is, considering that we have Jeddah, which is very, very similar to Hanoi. If you have raced Vietnam in FN 2021 game, it's a very, very tight circuit. So on a very tight circuit, we might not know who comes first, because apart from the obvious of Hamilton, of the Merc coming on the top, there is definitely a chance that they might drop off in tight circuits and street circuits. That is happening. Not to miss out that in 2 weeks' time we are going to Austin, Texas for the next race, and Austin, Texas always has produced some entertainment with respect to the race. So yeah, like how Vignesh said, it might turn any way possible, and you might not know, even McLaren can come on the top. I know it is too good to be, it is too good to be true, but anything can happen.
Yeah,
Is
no, I was going
McLaren
to say
close enough to come up
the same
on
thing
top?
with even what Hamilton and Max Verstappen, right? Under pressure, they have made a few mistakes over the last few races, right? And especially for Max, this close to being first-time world champion in this setup, I am sure there is a different type of pressure playing out. No doubt he's an extremely mature person from that perspective in terms of trying to handle that pressure. But at that speed, at that level, you never know. And this is one of the closest seasons we have seen so far. So I would say Abu Dhabi is probably going to be the place where we will be comfortable to say who is the champion of 2021. And yeah, with that, we'll be catching up with everyone 2 weeks from now, as Naren highlighted, in the US. 24th of October, US, 25th October, if you're tuning in from India, because the race starts at midnight. See you all till then. Take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye, Vivek. Bye, everyone.